Okay, extreme content warning, mature game, blah. Okay, so, the population of the United States of America has only grown throughout its whole history. But at one point in time, despite the increase in people, both the total amount of rapes and murders committed, as well as the per capita rates of both of those crimes, suddenly and noticeably began to trend downward to the present day, beginning right in the early to mid-90s. 1994 to be specific. The year that Doom 2 was released. The sequel to 1993's classic Doom. And 2 years after the very first Mortal Kombat title. Mortal Kombat 2 was already a year old by this point. Gothic was the adjective du jour, and Doom 2 wasn't even the only one of these kinds of games to come out that year. Warcraft, Primal Rage, Heretic, Killer Instinct, Elder Scrolls Arena, System Shock. And these were all certainly not the first ever violent or graphically depraved entertainment software to hit the market. But now they had achieved prolific success and vast cultural attention. It's no coincidence that this is the same year that the original entertainment software rating board content labels and descriptors were first issued. The Super Nintendo version of Doom had the honor of being the first officially M-rated game. That's right, Nintendo licensed the first mature content video game. How do you get more influential than that? So the question becomes, did these games, specifically Mortal Kombat, Doom, and similar works like those featured earlier, actually reduce rape and murder in the United States? No. No, of course not. Do you know anything about science or statistics? Probably. Probably at least enough to get the idea that that's just a singular, fascinating correlation. To suggest that it posits definitive proof that violent and graphic video games can alleviate criminal behavior tendencies at an entire national level is quite insubstantial, to say the least. You'd have to do way better than that to convince me or anyone else that playing Doom is going to stop people from killing or assaulting each other. I'll tell you what though, it does mean something pretty stable and assertable. Playing violent video games is not going to guarantee that someone will ever commit such crimes either. That just by itself, definitely not. There's such an unbelievably complex matrix of variables that determines when people are going to act out in monstrous ways, relegating the entire assumption of what causes violent behavior to a single one of those variables, like whether or not they play violent or gory video games, is just bad science. So to say that these games increased rape and murder in the United States following the year 1994, or during, is also insubstantial. According to this data at least, or these data, how could anything have been responsible for something that just didn't happen? Doom 1, the original, sold over 1 million copies in its first year of release, and that was absolutely wild at the time. 1993, games were really just becoming big then. And now, the gaming industry is worth excess of $95 billion. The graphics and the gore have only gotten better and bigger. Except now, I don't think I see quite such a trend towards extreme and overt gore, blood and stuff lately. Yet, murder seems to be creeping back up. However, in such a tiny way. Could violent games reduce violent crime after all? I still don't think so. That seems like too bold of a claim. I think the most reasonable conclusion to make is that they are not causally related. They just don't have that much to do with each other. So, why bother asking at all? Why bother asking in the first place? What made me curious enough to even go look this up? Well, that has to do with the mere reality of the existence of the two crimes specifically mentioned in the title and the earlier text of this video script. I don't have the numbers, but I'm strongly willing to bet that you find one of those two topics to be far, far harder to stomach than the other. And I've spent a lot of time wondering lately if I actually want my own children to be playing and watching the kind of games that I play on my channel, or played growing up. Because I do want them to have a mature sense about violence and all the other ugly things in this world, so they can defend themselves from it. But, of course not if it would cause long-term harm. So, now that I say it out loud after having written it down, and learning the thing that prompted me to write the script in the first place, yes, I am comfortable with my young daughter watching or playing violent video games. Now, probably she isn't ready for something so overtly graphic like Doom or Mortal Kombat. The usual age recommendations might be a good idea. Shoot, just the mere act of having labels on stuff in the first place, just so parents and the children can know what to expect, is enough. Every kid's different. I can so easily see two cases, both being said by parents I know personally. One might say, "Oh please, let him destroy something that's not the house for once." And another case I can imagine, "Oh no, she hates that kind of stuff, that's not going to go well at all." And plenty of variations and combinations thereof. It is definitely true that small children can be traumatized from witnessing explicit, albeit artificial, simulations of intense violence, blood, and gore. So I feel it irresponsible to ever recommend that small children be playing or watching these games before they are quote-unquote ready. But what does that mean? How do you know when they're ready? Who's to say? Parents? Church? Government? Do we stop people from making these kinds of games if we say they aren't good for the kids? Is there any practical knowledge about self-defense or anything at all to be learned from video games? Well, the U.S. Marine Corps thought so when they commissioned a mod for this game as a training tool. Yes, that is a real thing that happened. Yeah, here it is. Regardless, we can safely say that what is on the TV screen cannot physically hurt you or your loved ones. But there are people in real physical life who enjoy committing horrible acts of violence, and they want to do it to people's young kids. We cannot afford to be less skilled or capable than they are at violence, nor can our children, when the time comes for them to be ready. Speaking of, this content is free, but diapers and food are not. Like, subscribe, and become a Patreon supporter. Continue to get more mind-blowing facts and insights about various topics. History, video games, psychology, Dungeons & Dragons, tabletop stuff in general, just all the pure hyper-nerd stuff. Trying to get more HEMA things together so we can get live-action demos and scripted fiction with it. Like and subscribe purely if you know what HEMA is, or just in general, enjoy the art, maybe even the craft of war. The long-awaited sequel to Sun Tzu's classic Art of War, The Craft of War. Peace.